Good afternoon. Welcome to our second Wednesday at Westmont here on May 13th, 2020. Glad that you have joined us. We thank our music director, Jim Hutchison, for leading us off with a little bit of music. And today we are happy to welcome Frank Kurtik, who is the docent at Hines Chapel in Pittsburgh, so he had to make that long trip out here to be with us. And then, as always, our technology guy, Kevin Howell, is up there, and I'm Reverend Dr. Rene Whitaker. I want to start just with a little reading, because I think it ties in with what Frank will be doing this morning, because it's about inspiration, and we're all inspired from different directions. Sometimes we become so caught up in the daily grind that we forget how much beauty and inspiration our world offers. We forget about the power of inspiration. This author's favorite place is a point in Colorado next to the Royal Gorge Bridge, the highest suspension bridge in the world. There's a stand that overlooks the gorge, offering a magnificent view of the canyons and mountains and peaks and plains. From that vantage point, you can see delicately shaped spirals in the orange iron color so prominent in the canyon, surrounded by lighter sandstone and sulfur peaks. And so what inspires you? It's important to discover inspiration points, especially right now, those high places of the spirit from which you can see more clearly, see more beautifully. Spend time taking in the grander view of life. See how calming and inspiring it can be. See how you return to life with vigor, enthusiasm, and passion. Visit places that invigorate your soul. Remember things that inspired you long ago and let them bring beauty into your life today. Help see the larger picture. Find places in your home, your community, and maybe even your state. Look for that place in yourself, that sacred inspiration point within you, where your soul and your heart see the larger picture, where your ideas come to life, where you make the connection between your soul and the world around you. Seek the power of inspiration. And so today, we may be inspired by the past and the beauty of this building as we look forward to the future with hope and in faith. And so, look for inspiration. Thank you for being here today. And now I present Mr. Frank Kurtik.
Thank you, Renee. And this is indeed an inspiring place to be, and I'm really honored to be here for the second Wednesday noon live stream from Westmont Presbyterian Church. Now, this will be quite a bit different from the presentation that the Reverend Dr. Rene Whitaker made last week. Not only is the subject of my presentation secular, but I'm speaking as an outlander, a far outlander. In full disclosure, I have never lived in Westmont. Neither am I a Presbyterian. Although as a Methodist, I'm not totally out of place here because the architect of this church grew up as a Methodist, and the contractors who built the church were both members of the Methodist Church. So I have some kinship with the early beginnings of the building here. Now, others may have, certainly members of this congregation would have a much more intimate knowledge of the history of Westmont Borough and the activities that have taken place in this church over the decades. But I happen to have done some research on the building as it appears today, and I'm here wearing my architectural historian hat to share what I've learned with all of you. When I speak to others about Westmont, folks who have never been here, I describe it as lovely. It's a lovely community. And when I speak about Luzerne Street, on which this church sits, I think of that great idyllic setting that the great Hollywood movie director Frank Capra could have had for a movie set, may have dreamed up for one of his movies. It's just a beautiful location. I first came here when my friend Jim Hutchison came to be Minister of Music here, and I was just awestruck on a summer day with the graceful elm trees over the street and the beautiful homes. Well, but turning from the ideal to the very real, neither Westmont Borough nor this church would be here if not for the great flood that ravaged Johnstown and the Conemaugh Valley in 1889. In the recovery period after that flood, the major employer in Johnstown, down below us, the Cambria Iron Company, decided to develop what had been primarily pasture land for horses and mules. The mules and the animals that worked in the mines of the great iron company up on what was known as Yoder Hill. Their idea was to take a portion of the land and lay out lots and build housing for employees. Now, nature presented a formidable obstacle for access to this hilltop. Cambria Iron Company's 600 acres lay atop a bluff over, almost a sheer bluff of about 500 feet above the valley floor. But in the golden age of American enterprise, the solution was found in engineering. The iron firm contracted with Samuel Deasher of Pittsburgh to build an inclined plane. The result is the funicular, which still operates today. This innovative steep rail system made day-to-day life up here on the hilltop practical. The project to develop Cambria Iron's hilltop land was given to Charles R. Miller, who designed the grounds for the nation's centennial in Philadelphia in 1876. Once the community started to take shape here, it began to develop the amenities that went along with small towns. It included places of worship. This congregation of Presbyterians at this beautiful stone building had a very humble start. It began as a mission of First Presbyterian Church down in Johnstown. In 1894, the first effort was in the form of a Sunday school held in a storeroom on the second floor. Attendance grew, and less than a decade later, in 1902, a chapel was built on Mifflin Street nearby. Now, after World War I, further growth in the population of the borough and of this congregation called for a more substantial building. Now, first of all, a building site was acquired at the corner of Luzerne Street and Fisk Avenue. Now, next, an architectural plan was required. This came about at a very unique time in the history of this denomination, which is formerly the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America. In 1924, the PCUSA created a Bureau of Architecture, and it was the superintendent of that bureau who was the architect of this church. He was A.G. Lamont. He was given the full name of Archibald Garfield Lamont, a real mouthful, when he was born in Pittsburgh in 1881, but he went by his initials in adulthood, or at least in business matters. He worked in his family's contracting and building supply business in the 3100 block of Penn Avenue in Pittsburgh, what's now Pittsburgh Strip District. He went on to study at Adrian College, a Methodist school in Michigan, and later he became one of the first students in the architecture program of Carnegie Technical Institute, which is now Carnegie Mellon University. Practicing initially in Clarksburg, West Virginia, A.G. Lamont designed a mix of building types, but he did many churches, which probably led to his PCUSA position. Now, living at a time when the Gothic style was almost the predominant style for churches, largely thanks to the influence of one of the greatest American architects, Ralph Adams Cram. And among Cram's notable works in Western Pennsylvania is East Liberty Presbyterian Church in Pittsburgh. Lamont gave this congregation a building not so ornate and heavily decorated, but simpler, with subtle touches of the Gothic style, notably the characteristic pointed arch. In common with Gothic churches going back to the 12th century, the main construction of this church is stone. Limestone, in fact, quarried from the fabled quarries of the state of Indiana. I mentioned building materials brings us to the contractor responsible for the construction of this church. The trustees chose a local firm that had been in existence for a decade and was established by two brothers who were Penn State graduates. Lewis and Foster Berkerbile were 2 years apart in age, but both received their bachelor's degree in the very same year, 1910. After working on engineering and construction projects around the country for 4 years, they came back to Johnstown and formed their own firm, which they called Berkerbile Brothers. Most of their work was done locally and included Johnstown Central High School, the Johnstown Public Safety Building, the Gallagher Ice Cream Company, Penn Traffic, and the Swank Building. Now, the last name actually housed their offices, but unfortunately it was demolished in 2006. The Berkerbile brothers were known for their solid, well-built structures, and this church is no exception. The woodwork is just exceptional. And although I have not found the name of individual artisans, we just know the name of contractors, and searching newspaper articles, whatever I could find about this church's construction, I've just, one of the great gaps is I was not able to design these wonderful stained glass windows, but I'm still on that search. The cornerstone was laid in May of 1926, and the building was dedicated in the following June. It stands today not only as a testament to the beautiful design by the architect or the solid construction of the contractors, but to be sure, to the dedication of its congregation over the decades. I don't know if Kevin can pan any of the detail here, but it is a striking building. These stained glass windows let in a lot of light, even if these wonderful lanterns, and even the lanterns are in a Gothic style. It's a very harmonious building. It's a very welcoming, pleasant feeling when you come into the space. And the great feature, as one comes in the entrance door, comes down the aisle, is of course this wonderful pipe organ facade. The pipe organ alone can take an entire presentation, and I'll leave that to a greater authority, and notably, I'm sure my friend Jim Hutchison would speak in more detail than I can, of course. But there was a pipe organ here originally. It was made by a company known as Tellers, and that organ existed here up until, for several decades, until it was replaced by a Schlicker organ. But it was only about 4 years ago everything was revamped. It was my friend, the late Al Sterner, and Ray Colby, who responsible for the console and the upgrades in the pipe organ, adding digital voicings along with the speaking pipes here. And it's pretty amazing. This is a very up-to-date instrument, very capable of great music, and with those upgrades, it's really one of the largest in terms of specifications organs in Western Pennsylvania. And great sound. So I encourage, you heard Hutch play at the beginning here, just a very lovely sound here. So a wonderful music program. A wonderful congregation. It's been a joy to come here and participate in some choral events here. And I look forward to coming back again in the future when we can all get together and sing and worship together. But let me just thank you all for being attentive. I hope you've learned something today, taken away something that you didn't know before. And whenever you can, tune in to the Wednesday live stream here at Westmont. Thank you for your kind attention. Stay here.
You want to say something? It's always a surprise.
Stay here, Frankie.
Okay, I'll stay here.
You know, we've been friends how long? Long time.
Oh, decades.
And you were in the choir with me down at Asbury, and you were part of the founding when we started the audition choir. And I know how much music, great music, means to you. Choral music and instrumental music. You're so fortunate to work at the chapel. I envy you with that. But I thought maybe appreciate you coming up here today. And as a gift to you, I thought I might play something that I know you like. So why don't you have a seat about third or fourth pew, which is where it sounds best. And I think you'll enjoy Nimrod.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank
Thank you, Hutch. Thank you, Frank. If you liked today, you can tune in on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. If anybody out there would like a private tour of the church, you could call the church and we could probably arrange that because we're still not having in-person gatherings yet. And come and see the beautiful windows and to see the beautiful structure that we worship in. And that way, if you're worshiping at home, you can feel a little more at home as well. And so now today, we look forward to next Wednesday when Greg Davis from Pine Springs will be here to update them on what's happening in their season, camping season this year. And so I invite you to tune in again next Wednesday at Westmont at noon. And so with that, let us continue to look to the future, holding the past lightly so that we can be moving forward, looking for inspiration and following hope. Hallelujah. Have a great week.